It was the first genocide of the 20th century. But 99 years later, Armenians all over the world are still seeking recognition for atrocities committed by the Ottoman Empire from 1915 through 1923. You said you had family members that were affected by it. What are some of the stories that stick out for you from your own family?
My mother's father, his entire family was killed, and then his uncle took him into the forest to hide him, and then the Turks came in and they found him, and they cut his uncle's throat right in front of him, and he was only 7 years old.
My great-grandmother carried a child throughout the desert on the march through Deir Zor, so she was able to carry a child and make it through the genocide.
When they took me away from my mother, I was only 5 years old.
I was only 1. An estimated 1.5 million Armenians were murdered during the genocide. But almost a century later, Turkey denies responsibility for the mass extermination of Armenians, and the United States has not formally recognized it either, despite a plethora of evidence. They marched them out into the desert, and nobody survived. Nobody survived. Let's say it gets recognized, and then what?
I don't think and I don't expect us to get land back. I don't see it that way. The United States and Turkey will benefit as a culture, as a people, more by accepting and recognizing and claiming responsibility and moving forward than we will as a people. I think for us, it's just some kind of solace that we'll get.
However, Armenian-American lawyer Mark Giragos does think reparations are a big issue, and he expressed those views at the annual commemoration at the State House in Boston.
I would suggest that we ought to move from the R word of recognition to the R word of restitution, to the R word of reparations.
Whether reparations are the real issue or not, it's clear that plain recognition alone may have stopped some of the atrocities that happened later on in the 20th century. How do you think the genocide, Armenian genocide, enabled other genocides to occur?
I think it just gives you the kind of open passport. The famous quote everybody knows when Adolf Hitler said, "Who in the end remembers the Armenians?" I mean, there's something to be said about recognition as a way of kind of keeping something from happening in the future. That's what I mean by that. And I think that's the most crucial kind of thing when we talk about the Armenians. It's not necessarily about the Armenians, it's about humanity as a kind of general framework.
Peter Khatchaturian is the sheriff of Middlesex County and a former member of the House of Representatives. Throughout his time in office, he has served the Armenian community graciously, most notably through the recently constructed Armenian Heritage Park near Faneuil Hall. On April 24, a vigil was held for the victims of the genocide at the park. What progress have you seen your work doing towards to make this Armenianism in this area stronger?
You can really see it a lot. Armenian Heritage Park is a great example of something that no one thought ever had a chance. A $6 million project that is now in the heart of Boston on the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway that was opposed by so many political powerhouses and media because they didn't know who we were, they didn't know why we were doing this. I think that they were trying to preserve it for other reasons. And there were many other ethnic groups that were trying to get places on. And in the end, after a number of years of political infighting and preparation and work and fundraising and advocacy, we were the only ethnic group that was left standing on the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway, the only ethnic group.
Khatchaturian's efforts have been fruitful, but there is still a lot of work left to be done.
Our own government here in the United States has not formally recognized as having occurred.
Why do you think there's been stagnation with the United States government recognizing the genocide with all this evidence?
I think that it's a matter of clout. I think that we as a people need to build our clout. We have tended not to send our children, we tend to send our children, my generation and the other generations, to school for medicine, for optometry and dentistry and engineering and law and many of these other great in trades and culture and arts, these many great things that we should be doing as a people that are part of who we are, but we don't put our children into public service. And until we do that, we will always be spectators in this game. We will always be in the stands cheering on or yelling agreement or disagreement with the movements of the players on the field, but we'll never actually be a player on the field. And that's where we need to move to.
You're in the field. What responsibility do you feel personally that you have about this cause?
Oh, I feel a tremendous responsibility. And everything that I did reflects on our people. And so, in my mind, I'd better do it right, and I'd better honor our people. I better honor my grandparents, and I'd better honor all the Armenians that are over here in the United States right now.
Young Armenians in Boston are already active in their efforts for remembering the genocide.
What responsibility do you feel the younger generations have in order to get pushed towards recognition?
We're at a really interesting time in our diaspora's history because we're reaching a point where there are no longer any genocide survivors alive and well enough to attend genocide recognition events. So I created the project Stand Up for Your Survivor as a way for people of my generation to continue to make the fight for genocide recognition more relevant, because the survivors are no longer with us, but we still feel the pain of the survivors.
When did you come up with the idea?
Well, I had been attending the annual genocide commemoration ceremony at the State House every year, and there's a portion of the event where they honor genocide survivors. And I noticed that every year there were fewer and fewer genocide survivors attending the event because it was the 95th anniversary, the 96th anniversary, now it's the 99th anniversary, and there were, I think, 2 survivors at the event. So it just had me thinking about what we would do when we reached that crux when there were no genocide survivors alive and well enough to attend the event. So I was thinking of a way that we could, a timeless way to make sure that their presence was felt in the House chamber and at other genocide recognition events.
They created these shirts called Our Wounds Are Still Open, and I actually love these shirts because you wear it and it kind of is like really graphically designed to catch your eye, and it kind of starts the conversation. I've had so many people, non-Armenians, just random strangers, come up to me and they're like, what is that shirt about? And you start the conversation, and it's to help spread awareness.
Over the last 5 centuries, Armenians have only had an independent nation to call home for 27 years. They have endured unimaginable dark days, and the fight for recognition continues as we approach the century mark next year. The struggle has only made Armenians stronger and more proud of their identity, no matter where they are on the globe.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing. I mean, my entire family has been out of Armenia for almost 40 years, and like the culture is still very much alive, like in my home, like the food, the music, the dance, the history, like everything. I just feel like our culture is very, very unique.